My name is Claire Reeves, and I am 36 years old, and I want to tell you about the photographs. There are no photographs of me in my parents' house. There are photographs of my brother Marcus on the hallway wall, his school portrait at 11, his university graduation at 22, and a large framed print from his wedding 3 years ago. There are photographs of my sister Beth on the shelf in the sitting room, one on a beach holiday, one of her 2 children at Christmas, and one of her and my mother in a garden somewhere with matching cardigans and matching expressions. There are photographs of my nephew and my 4 nieces distributed across the sitting room, the kitchen, and the upstairs landing. There are framed drawings the children made, printed photos of birthday parties, a professional family portrait from last summer in matching neutral tones. There is not one photograph of me anywhere in the house. There is not one photograph of my daughter Mia, who is 11 years old and whom I have raised alone since she was 3, and who is, without any bias I can claim to have removed from my assessment, one of the most remarkable people I have encountered in my life. I noticed the photographs, or rather the absence of them, properly when Mia was 5 years old. I brought her to my parents' house for Christmas, and she walked through the hallway with the focused attention children bring to new environments, and she stopped in front of the wall of framed pictures, and she stood there for a moment, and then she turned to me and said, "Mommy, why aren't we on the wall?" I did not have an answer that was honest and also appropriate for a 5-year-old standing in her grandparents' hallway on Christmas morning. I said that we had our own wall at home, which was true, and she accepted it because children accept the explanations they are given when they have not yet been taught to press further. I did not accept it. I filed it in the place where I file things I am not ready to act on, but I'm not willing to forget. That place had been filling for a long time. Before I tell you what happened last spring, please hit like and subscribe and drop your city in the comments. The history of my relationship with my parents is not a simple one, and I do not want to reduce it to a simple version because the truth is more useful than a flattened account. My parents are not deliberately cruel people. They are people who have a way of distributing attention and visibility that has never been equal and that they have never examined because examining it would require them to acknowledge what it has cost the people on the receiving end of the imbalance. Marcus is the eldest and the only son, and my father organized his pride around Marcus from the beginning, in the particular way that some fathers do, without conscious intent, but with total consistency. Beth is the youngest, and my mother kept her close in the way that some mothers keep the youngest child close, as a way of holding on to something that is ending. I was the middle child, and I had a quality that did not serve me in my family, which was that I processed things internally and did not require things loudly. I got on with what needed doing. I did not perform distress or need in ways that attracted resources. I was, by every external measure, fine, and in my family, fine was the condition that received the least. I left home at 18 and built a life at a deliberate distance from the dynamics I had grown up inside. I had Mia at 25 in a relationship that did not survive her first year of life. Her father left. I raised her alone with the help of friends I had chosen carefully and a community I had built outside the family I was born into. My parents were present in Mia's life, in the way people are present when they have not chosen to be absent, but have not chosen to show up either. They sent birthday cards that arrived on the right day. They came to one school play in 6 years. They called on Christmas morning and spoke to her for 7 or 8 minutes before passing the phone to Marcus or Beth. They had never put her photograph on their wall. When I raised this once, carefully and without accusation, my mother said they had not gotten around to it and she would look for a nice frame. That was 4 years before the national final. The frame was never found. The photograph was never printed. Mia started competitive public speaking at 8, And I want to tell you about this because it is the part of her story I am most proud of, and also the part that is most fully hers, not mine. She was not directed toward it or enrolled in it by a parent with a plan. She found a local club through a notice on the school board, came home and said she wanted to go, and I took her. At the first session, she stood up and spoke for 3 minutes on why school libraries should extend their opening hours on weekday evenings, and the adults in the room looked at each other during the speech with the particular expression of people witnessing something they had not been prepared for. She was 8. She spoke without notes. She had a structure and a point, and she meant every word of it. She competed at the regional level at 9 and won her category. She competed at county level at 10 and came second. On the drive home after the county final, she sat in the passenger seat and told me what she had done wrong. She said it without self-pity. She said it with the clarity of someone who has analyzed a performance and extracted the lesson from it, without allowing the loss to distort the analysis. I remember thinking that I was watching her become someone in real time, and that the becoming was entirely her own. At 11, she entered the National Junior Public Speaking Competition. It is a competition organized by a national arts education body, and the final is held in a proper auditorium and broadcast on a regional television network, with coverage also provided by a national arts and culture program. The final 12 competitors are selected from regional winners across the country. I did not tell my parents she had entered. I want to be honest about why, because the reason matters, and I do not want to sanitize it into something more acceptable than the truth. I did not tell them because I had stopped expecting them to show up for things. I had found, over a long time, that not expecting them hurt less than expecting them and being disappointed again. I had made a practical peace with the distance. I had enclosed Mia's life within a circle of people who actually showed up, and I had stopped trying to pull my parents into that circle, because the effort cost more than the result ever justified. The national final was on a Friday evening in April, in an auditorium that seated 400 people. Mia wore a navy dress she had chosen herself after trying on 3 others and returning them. Her hair was in a braid she had done herself that morning at the bathroom mirror, while I sat on the edge of the bath, and I did not offer to help because she had not asked for help, and she did not need it. We arrived 90 minutes early. She spent the time doing something she always does before a performance, which is sitting quietly with a notebook, not reviewing her script, but writing other things entirely. Observations about the room, descriptions of the other competitors, small notes about nothing in particular. She said once that it stops her from tightening up before she speaks. She had discovered this herself. I had not taught it to her. There were 12 finalists. They each spoke for 8 minutes on a topic of their choice from a list released 2 weeks before the final. Mia had chosen the relationship between language and power. She spoke without notes. She did not look at the ceiling or the floor. She looked at the audience the way speakers look at audiences when they are not performing composure, but actually have it. When she finished, there was a moment before the applause that had a specific quality I have thought about many times since. The moment of an audience registering what they have just heard before their hands begin moving. The judging took 22 minutes. The host read the results from 3rd place upward. When he said, "And the National Junior Public Speaking Champion this year is Mia Reeves," I want to describe what happened in my body accurately, because the accurate version is not what people might expect. It was not uncomplicated joy. It was something quieter and older than joy. It was the feeling of a long, silent accumulation reaching a conclusion. She walked to the stage, she received her certificate and held it in both hands. The host asked her one question, which was who she would like to thank. She said, "My mom." She found me in the audience from the stage, and she held her certificate and she smiled. The camera, as cameras at these events do, cut briefly to the audience, to me. My name was not said, my title was. The broadcast went out live. My parents were watching. I did not know this during the final. I found out afterward from my sister Beth, who had seen the competition listed in the television guide.
recognized Mia's name in the program details, and called my parents when the broadcast began. Beth had not told me she was going to tell them. I do not know whether this was an act of kindness or something more complicated, and I have decided that the intention matters less than what followed. My father called me the morning after the final. He said, "Claire, we watched last night. We had no idea she was competing." I said, "I know." He said, "She was extraordinary." I said, "Yes, she is." He said, "Why did you not tell us she was in it?" I thought about how to answer that question accurately without using it as an opportunity to say everything I had held back over a long time. I said, "Dad, I suppose I had stopped assuming you would want to know." He said, "That is not fair." I said, "I am not saying it as an accusation. I'm saying it as a description of where we had ended up." He was quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that comes from something having landed. He said, "Your mother would like to put a photograph of Mia in the house." He said it carefully, with the deliberateness of someone who understands the weight of what they're saying. I said, "I think Mia would like that." He paused again, and then he said, "And of you." I said, "That would be fine." He said he would speak to my mother about it. I did not say that my mother had told me once she would find a nice frame. I decided to let this instance of the offer be different and to see what it produced, rather than closing it before it could become something. 3 weeks after the final, my mother came to our house for the first time in 4 years. She brought a small plant and a card for Mia and a framed photograph she had printed herself from a still of the broadcast, Mia at the podium holding her certificate. She said she hoped it was all right. Mia said it was brilliant and took it immediately and said she wanted it in the sitting room. My mother stayed for 2 hours. She sat on the sofa with Mia, and Mia told her about the speech and the other competitors and the girl from Edinburgh who had come second and with whom she had already exchanged numbers. My mother listened with the attention of someone who was both paying a debt and genuinely interested in what she is hearing, and I think those two things can coexist, and I am willing to accept them both. When she left, she stood in my hallway and looked at my wall of photographs, the many images of Mia at different ages, of friends, of Mia and me together. She stood there for a long moment. She said, "You have a good life here, Claire." I said, "We do." She said, "I should have come sooner." It was the closest she has come to saying the real thing directly. I accepted it for what it was, which was the most she could manage and more than I had expected. I said, "You are here now." She nodded, she put on her coat and left. I went back into the sitting room where Mia was adjusting the angle of the framed photograph on the shelf, tilting it slightly left, then right, then left again. She settled on a slight tilt to the left and stepped back and looked at it and said, "That is the one." I said, "Yes, that is the one." That is my story. Drop your city in the comments, hit subscribe. I will see you in the next one.